there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10 list, or some other board game-related topic, usually that I happen to be thinking about. Well, it's the first day of 2025, and I'm going to talk about one of the last games I played in 2025. It was one that I had heard about, but it took a while for me to be able to get a copy. And when I played it, I was just so surprised by how much it was interesting, I guess I will say. I don't want to spoil what I'm going to talk about here later. This is it's a game. It's sort of part of a family of app-based games where you have to have a companion app to play it. And the game is called Spark Riders 3000. Now, the title itself made me not all that interested in it, but then I heard other people talking about it, and I'm like, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. I'll show you a little bit about how it works, and I'll let you know my thoughts. So to start about, what is Spark Riders 3000 about? Well, this is a space adventure, I guess is probably the best way to phrase it. So I can find a picture here. You are the members of a crew of the Spark, which is a spaceship, and you're on a mission. Your mission is, the missions I've played are generally to survive for a certain number of rounds. Well, not a certain number of rounds, to survive until you've got a certain amount of distance, and that's going to be your objective. Now, things are going to happen as you are going through space, as things always do, and you are going to be going a certain speed normally. I think normally if you do nothing else, then here's a picture I finally found. If you do nothing else, then you go, I think, 1,000 space units per round. And 10,000 is sort of the standard amount to accomplish your goal. However, there are actions you can take that will cause that to improve, and there are things that can happen that will cause that to be less. So if you can see sort of here on the screen, this is the spaceship. And so that's kind of what it's about. It's a cooperative game. You're working together. You're trying to fend off invaders. You're trying to make yourself go as quickly as possible to get to the end. You're trying to upgrade and get lots of special abilities. And you're trying to keep the ship from blowing up. Or being blown up, I guess is a better way to put it. And if you meet the scenario's victory conditions, you win. Otherwise, well, you don't win. In fact, you might lose. Well, you would lose. So let's talk about how does it work. Now, the first thing I need to mention with this is that a good portion of the game is going to be controlled by an app that you'll download onto your phone or iPad or whatever else it happens to be. And actually, this is one where the iPad is probably the best way to do it, or even if you could connect that with a TV, because a lot of the fun of the game is going to be these clips that are going to come up. It'll, some alien will show up and shout at you, or it's a casino guy who shows up and offers you an opportunity to bet part of your ship and hopefully win a big prize. Whatever it happens to be, but it's always these cutscenes, and they're enjoyable. They're, narrated, voice acted. There's not a lot going on. It's usually just somebody sitting around a table. But it's fun to watch, and it's nice to kind of have it all together. Then you're going to use the app, and the app's going to tell you what the aliens do. It'll usually what happens is aliens are going to show up behind the ship. The app will tell you, how many guns they have, how many shields they have, etc. And then after some time has gone by, the aliens will move up to the left or right. If you're next to a gun, you can shoot them. If not, you can't. And then eventually they'll attack you, and the app will say you've been hit. You've taken 5 damage, and then it'll go to this damage protocol where it will show you the different rooms of the ship and tell you how many times it's been hit. And then you'll roll for defense using the shields that you've built. And if you succeed, then you won't take any damage. Otherwise, you'll take some, and you might, end up in a critical condition in one of the rooms. Something else might happen. And so that's kind of most of the combat is handled by the app. You'll see these dice, and you're rolling them, but you roll them primarily for defense or for certain other actions that you might be doing. And then after that, there might be an event, and then it's your turn. And on your turn, you can move your character, you can perform an action in a room where you end up, and the actions can be using a gun to shoot aliens, they can be repairing these thrusters so that you can go faster. If you're in the cockpit, you can pilot the ship and go usually a little bit faster, depending on how well you do. You can also build stuff, so you can build better guns or shield generators or other equipment that, if a room gets blown up, you can put it back. And so you're trying to sort of build things up, and those are often actions that take place over the course of several rounds. And after you've done your 2 actions, you're kind of done. Now this here looks like this phone on this picture is the app, and that's kind of one way to do it. Another kind of fun thing is you can tap the activate button and then just talk to the computer AI. Her name is Iris, which is the same letters as Siri. And you can sort of communicate with it that way. In fact, many of the action cards or events that you'll play, or the item cards, will say this in order to activate it. Now you could go in and find the card and hit activate, but it's easy. You just sort of talk to your game. Each character has some special abilities, and you're going to kind of go back and forth, right? You do an action improving the ship, and then the aliens will activate, or the forces of chaos will activate. Things will break down, you'll have to repair them, and at the end you're either going to, if ever your bridge, your nexus, which is I guess sort of the heart of your ship, or both thrusters are destroyed, you lose. As long as you have at least your cockpit, your bridge, and 1 thruster, I think you can survive. I've never gotten that low. And if you make it to the end, you win. You accomplish whatever scenario objective it is, you win. Otherwise, you lose. And either way, you can play again. So that is kind of how the game works. So what makes the game special? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I'm just going to start out by saying this game's a lot of fun to play. The acting is fun. The scenarios are wonky. And the app integration is really very smooth. This is a game where, you can read the rules if you want to, but really you can learn how to play as you go. If you're teaching this, when I've taught the game, it's like, okay, you're going to do an action. What action do you want to do? We'll talk about it when you do. And a lot of the results are ultimately, the efficacy of the results are determined by the app anyway. So, you're piloting, you roll your green die, you add your bonuses, you got a 4, okay, now we input 4 into the app, and the app tells us what that actually means. The events are kind of random, but the characters that you'll come across are fun. They have kind of their own personalities. There's a gang of swindlers that'll come by and try and extort you. I mentioned the casino guy, and if you don't play along, if you don't bet, then the casino guy might tip off some aliens to where you are, and you'll get sort of some aliens that'll show up. It's a really fun game, and it's a really easy game to get into. It's a very playable game, more so than many others. Like I mentioned, the app itself is very good. It's very easy to use. The voice acting is good, with the exception of the AI, which has sort of this robotic voice, which I guess is, thematic, right? Because it's supposed to be sounding like, an Alexa or a Siri or something else like that. But it's I don't know, that's a little distracting, and that's what you hear the most of. But it's all very easy to use. It's a very fun game. It's a little on the long side, but not too long. It's sort of, what does the box say about the time? I should know this. 60 minutes. That's about right, actually. You can play a game easily in 60 minutes. And a lot of the upkeep, in fact, most of the upkeep is handled external to to the players. I will say, that I don't think, some of these app-based games you can play by yourself if you really wanted to. This one, you really need it. So there's that. So yeah, it's fun. It's playable. It's, about the right length. The characters are fun, and it has a great theme, right? It's really going to give you this sort of not you know, experienced star crew type of a theme. It's going to be kind of your uh, a ragtag team trying to make your way through. Now, you are expert in certain things, but uh, it's ultimately you're going to be struggling to get across the finish line, not sailing through easily. So there's that. So where's the but? A couple of buts here. The first one is I mentioned the rules are pretty easy, but sometimes they're a little hand wavy. It's kind of it's easy to play, and it's cooperative, so ultimately, who cares? But you can kind of feel like I'm not quite sure how this works. Well, let's just, rather than trying to find it in the rule book, let's just go with it. And as long as you're okay with that, then great. If that's a problem, you might not like that in this game. Also, so far, and I don't know how many scenarios there are, but the ones I've played have all kind of felt the same. They have, okay, you're trying to deliver the codex, or you're trying to journey to this place, and, you might pick up a VIP along the way, but that VIP doesn't then do anything. I don't know that I saw it come up during the story. It was just if this room is destroyed, it's lost. I don't know that it's a fun game to play, but I don't know that one scenario to the next is going to be that different. Now, as long as you're okay with that and just sort of go, I mean, not every game, most games aren't different from one scenario to the next, but you'd think, if you play something like Forgotten Waters or something of that ilk where there's varying different scenarios and you're going to have a wild adventure each time, that's probably not the case here. It's going to be more, doing the same thing with small bits of adventure kind of thrown in on the side. So if you're looking for something that's going to be a unique sort of story adventure, maybe not this, but as long as you're okay with that, it's fine. I will say that does make it not the kind of game you want to play again and again and again and again in a row, just because you'll kind of notice how kind of the beats feel the same. Now, I could have just picked the wrong scenarios, right? It could be that there are several and there's a lot of scenarios. There could be several that are very different and off the wall, and I just picked the wrong ones, and this could be an invalid critique. But from my experience so far, they've been, get to 10,000 AU or whatever it happens to be, and then you win. So just be aware of that. So hand wavy rules and kind of similar story beats, but on the whole, those aren't really big negatives. It's also quite lucky, right? I mean, you are rolling dice to do most of your actions. Now, you will have the ability to kind of use special abilities or cards to improve things. But, drawing from a huge deck of cards means it's also going to be kind of lucky. So, you have to be prepared that things might not go your way. And as long as you're okay with that, you'll have a good time. So roll with it and you'll be fine. So what is my final rating? Well, I'm going to say this, and next week I'm going to be talking about Board Game Assassins, and this is the game that kind of got me thinking about this. This is one of the best app-driven games that there is. Now, Forgotten Waters and Wayfarers and now Wandering Galaxy, they're kind of a slightly different type of a game. I mean, they are app-driven, but they're more story adventure. This one's more like Mansions of Madness, honestly. It's like a space version of Mansions of Madness without the puzzles. And it's one of the best games of that type that there is. It's so fun, so interesting, so easy to get into. There are very few components. And I should say, under what makes it special, the production quality here is fantastic. Nice, thick, dual-layered cardboard pieces for all the ships. The enemy ships, the nice minis. Now, I might have the deluxe version, but in mine there's nice little minis for all of the guns, and they kind of fit together as you improve them. It makes it look quite nice. So really good production quality. But so with very little in terms of components, it all fits quite nicely in this box. It does a lot. There's a lot here, and it's one of the best sort of story adventure app-driven games that there is. It's I just really was quite enamored with it. It might have made my top 24 or 24 if I had played it in time, but I only got it sort of the last week of the year, so it was too late at that point to slip it on the list. But I really did enjoy it. I thought it was just a fascinating game, and I think my rating for it's going to be a 9 out of 10. I do think, of course, try before you buy, and it might be the kind of game that you don't need to own if someone else you know does, because it's cooperative. You can play it with someone else. But for me and my house, I think this is just a lot of fun. I loved the experience from start to finish. I think it is going to stand out and be remembered well, especially if the app continues to be updated and new scenarios get added. If there were a few scenarios that were a little different than just get from point A to point B, I would be. I mean, this could go higher than a 9 for me. It's just that fun and that easy to play. I really think this will work with just about any group, with just about any player, as long as you're okay with a cooperative game. But I think you'll have a good time with it. Anyway, 9 out of 10 for me, and that is Spark Riders 3000. And that is our episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I did mention that next week we're going to talk about board game assassins. So we'll talk a bit more about that next time. And this is the game that got me started thinking about it, but it's not going to be on the list just because it's too new. And I have others to talk about. But anyway, that's all I'm going to have for you today. So I'm going to, next week, now I will be, let's see, next week, next week's Dice Tower Cruise. So I'll be pre-recording this one just so that you can have it while I'm away. But until then, I'm going to wish you, and me, safe travels, courage when you need it, and I hope to see you back soon for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.